tonight. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development Thoko Didiza visited northern KwaZulu-Natal today to assess the damage to sugarcane farms and food shortage in areas like Ulundi and Eshowe. The minister's visit follows a week of riots and looting in that province. Our senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo joins us live now with Minister Didiza. Ziyanda, certainly the minister would have seen the devastation then that was felt, in fact, even now is still being felt by quite a number of those business owners. Talk to us then about the extent of the damage and where does she think help lies now at a time like this?
Well, certainly, you know, the Ministry of Thoko Didiza, that being of Agriculture and Rural Development, is going to be crucial, especially with those questions around food security, particularly in this province of KwaZulu-Natal. So it was quite apt for her to start off here. She went to Eshowe and Ulundi, and Bongi will know that even the President mentioned Ulundi, saying that he'd spoken to IFP President Emeritus Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who'd also raised the issue of the snaking queues in areas such as Ulundi. But I'm just going to toss straight to the minister and you give us your assessment on the ground of what happened. You went to Nkwalini, you went to Mpangeni, and Mtubatuba. You know, these are very critical areas when you look at the kind of produce that is being made there. Minister, how bad is the situation?
Well, I must say that one has to look at the impact and the extent of the damage. It is huge, even though in varying degrees. And I must say that in certain areas, what had happened is that community, together with the safety and security, were able to defend the towns from being looted. If you talk of Ulundi, for instance, it's one of those towns that was not looted or any shops gutted. But what happened yesterday is that you had long queues because you had challenges in Nongoma, which was still undergoing cleanup, and therefore no shops were open there. In Melmoth, it was the same. So a lot of those communities in that Zululand district flocked into Lundi in order to access their foodstuff and other basic needs. But I must be grateful to the members of the Consumer Goods Council, such as Boxer as well as ShopRite, who were able, when we requested them, to actually open for longer hours to allow all the people who were in the queues to access their goods. Secondly, I also want to extend my appreciation to the MEC of local government, together with the mayors in the various localities and municipal managers, when we appealed to them to actually support this initiative to make sure that we have stability and we also have accessibility of food. They actually came on stream. This afternoon, I actually had an opportunity to address all the mayors of the province who were convened by the MEC Somuga, so that I can share with them what we are trying to do and how we can work together to make sure that those communities are able to access their food in an orderly manner, particularly in those areas where some of the shops are not yet fully functional. But I also want to thank the safety and security cluster of our ministers, both nationally and in the province, who have really assisted us to make sure that your N3, your N2 is now open, and majority actually of the access roads into some towns are now able to, you know, to move in terms of transport as well as people, so that they can access, you know, certain basic stuffs, giving us enough security for supporting our logistics to move food supplies to those many rural communities.
So, Minister, from what you're telling me, does this mean that there's no need to panic buy, or can you give us a timeline? Are we talking 3 days? Are we talking a week? At what stage will you be comfortable, and can you say that everything will return to normality insofar as the supply of food is concerned?
I will indeed ask our communities not to panic buy, because we do have food supplies. What might be a little challenge for now is the movement and logistics to reach everybody else, particularly where damages have been much more in terms of the functionality of the shops, both your shopping malls as well as the local shops, because it's important for us not to forget our small business communities, your spaza shops, your shopkeepers, both in the township and in the rural areas, because they form part of the food value chain. So when some of these distribution centers and warehouses are gutted, it doesn't only affect your bigger Pick and Pays and your ShopRite, it also affects the shop Gamazondi, Ispaza shops, Antimkize, all of those are part of the system. So what we are also doing, which is what I must say some of the municipalities are doing right now, is to look at whether some of their halls can be makeshift, warehouses or even makeshift shops, so that where you don't have a functional shop, those can in the meantime come into stream, which I must say that it's good innovation in the midst of the crisis to allow us to be able to get food and other basic amenities closer to our people. I know I say food with the emphasis, but remember, those have got young kids. Your diapers and other things are essential, but also your medicines. It's important because some of these local shops, your local spas and ShopRite, they also sell medicine. So it is important that we see this as the broader value chain.
I mean, Minister, perhaps after your visit, if you could just be specific in terms of what was damaged or what was not damaged. I mean, KwaZulu-Natal, there's sugar cane, there's also the trees that feed into Mondi. So your assessment of the farms that you visited, what exactly was damaged? I mean, there were those visuals of the milk being spilt. Yes. So just at a basic level, just in simple terms, what did you find?
For instance, I went to the farms in Kwalini, Mlalazi, as well as those farms closer to Mbangeni, where actually the cane, some of the farmers, lost about 50,000 hectares of those cane that was burnt. Some of them 17 hectares on a varying degrees. But what is also said is that some of the cane that was actually burnt, it's very young cane that still need to grow. But some of the cane that was burned, it's cane that can actually be saved if it's cut immediately and taken to the mills. And I must say that I'm happy that about 7 out of 10 sugar milling companies are already operational today. And they are trying to push to make sure that they get the throughput from this cane that was built. That will assist in a better way. I also have seen some of the farmers who are doing mixed farming, not only cane, particularly in Kwalini, but also have got livestock. And one of the sad part was that one of these women farmer, her piglets, which were ready for the market, were actually looted, killed and looted. Very sad scenario. But what for me was even encouraging was that we've got young graduates who are working in that farm who actually, though traumatized by the situation, were able to say, we will continue to work here because we think it is important to support this woman farmer, in particular at this stage. We also went to one of the farms where he lost about 55 hectares of the cane. And I mean, if one were to look at the extent in terms of value, even though it would be varying from one area to the other given the soil types and so on, you're talking of something that is more than 20, around 20, 25,000 or so per hectare. So at an extent of the damage, and we really feel what has been felt by a number of communities, particularly farming communities, because the impact of this, it's also to our workforce, our farm workers, who are the bedrock of the farming system. And when these disturbances happen, they have a ripple effect to their families. But I must say that one thing that came out of this situation is the solidarity that we've seen among our people, particularly the farming community, that were able to come together to defend and save some of the farms from further damage.
Minister, there has been a concern here raised by farmers over the fact that there has, or confusion maybe, you know, with the announcement that petrol will not be able to be sold in containers. And of course this would have an impact on farmers, because as a farmer you would need the small containers for your plant, your tractors, etc. What alternatives do they have in the absence of being able to get this fuel in those containers?
Let me just say that that's one issue that we're engaging with the Department of Minerals and Energy at the moment, because what you're saying is very critical, particularly in the farming communities, to make sure that the operations, particularly during the harvesting time and also the planting time, you don't have to lose, you know, your agricultural calendar when you are at that point because of one or other element that may be lacking, which then doesn't help you to put on stream. So it's some of the issues that we are going to engage the minister as well as the department. It's not only here in KwaZulu-Natal, it has been raised with us already by farmers from other parts of the country.
I'm going to get into trouble for this, but I do need to squeeze this in. Is there going to be a fund then that's put together to assist those farmers? I mean, 25,000 times 55 hectares, that's a lot of money that has been lost for that one particular farmer. Any plans?
Well, let me say we will have to have a careful assessment of the nature of support that is required. Because, as I say, in some instances, that cane is ready to go to the mill. So, yes, there might have been a loss, but the extent of which may be salvageable. In other areas, it may not. So we are looking and working with the farming communities at what is it that would be most required at this time to make sure that production continues.
Well, there you have it, Bongi, with that Agriculture Minister, Thoko Didiza. You would have heard some of the stories that she interacted with today on farms across KwaZulu-Natal and the extent of the damage caused by the unrest in the last week. Certainly a harrowing picture that is being painted, but also a picture of hope, I suppose, saying that the farming community has really rallied together to assist each other, and no need to panic by South Africa, because in terms of the supply chain management system, it's all systems go, and there will be no disruptions in that regard.
All right, Ziyanda, I tell you what, one of the things that I know a lot of people were looking to tonight was to hear what the minister mentioned, those spaza shops that are owned by Ngcobo in the townships, really looking for help at this time, as small businesses were also really hardest hit by this particular unrest. Thank you so much for your time, Ziyanda. And as you heard there, the minister giving an update of the devastation that she then encountered when she was just crisscrossing